Good evening, everybody. My name is Derek Sellers, and I'm a Deputy Director in the House Community Development Department for the city. I want to thank each of you for attending this tonight, whether in person or virtually. But we also want to thank our partners in this project, the Houston Land Bank at Astor Robinson, and of course, all the support we've received from the community leaders and the community members, including Councilmember Carlos Cisneros in her office. If Councilmember Cisneros is in attendance, would you like to provide any opening remarks before we get started?
Well, good evening, everyone. So,
Yeah.
look at that, not at the projector light. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here in person and online. There's been a whole series of these community meetings, and I really appreciate how accessible the housing department has been to the community, extending the time period for public comment, for willingness to go anywhere to talk to anyone at any time, pretty much. So thank you for that. It really makes a difference when people can really be engaged and have a say in shaping what the future of this is. So this is essentially a housing project. So, but there's other components of it that are important where the community input has been important in making sure that it fits into the neighborhood, that it aligns with the values of the community, and that we're able to take advantage of some opportunities that the community really wants to see here. So I'm anxious to see the results of all the data you've collected. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership and your assistance as we've worked through these last few months on this project. The city, we're glad we've worked with community members to gather so much feedback and get a better understanding of the kind of homes you want to see come to the near north side. It's our department's role to invest in communities, bring quality homes that can stay safe and affordable to many different residents over the long term. And, we are focused on that long-term thinking as well. Part of the goal of this project is to provide opportunities for home ownership, especially to those increasingly being priced out of markets like the near north side. We've heard some great feedback so far. We're excited to share that information with you tonight about what we've heard along the way. This feedback is going to be incorporated into our development of our plans as we move forward for these sites. I want to thank you for your interest and support in this important investment in the near north side community, your support as we've gone through this process. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeremiah.
All right, thank you, Derek. And I got the light in my face just now too. I haven't learned my lesson just yet, but we will be joined on the call by one of our consultants, Astor Robinson, by Alexander Miller. And she's going to walk us through a large chunk of what feedback looks like. So you'll be hearing her virtually, and I will be here directing things online, or in person, I should say. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm just trying to move a little bit so I'm not blocking the screen for everyone here. The format of this meeting will look very similar for those of you that have joined us in prior meetings. So, key difference at the end. So the first thing we're going to do is go through the project background. We've been engaged for 6 weeks. So just kind of a recap in case you need that reminder of what we're doing today. Then we're going to go over just briefly the process that we went through in the community. And then as part of that will be when we talk about the results that we heard. And then finally, we'll talk about the next steps. What does it mean? What does that feedback mean, and how HGDD will move forward and use it? And with that, I am going to hand it to Alex to walk us through the project background. Alex?
Sounds great. Thanks, Jeremiah. And if you guys wouldn't mind, it's a little fuzzy, the audio. So if you want to mute when I'm talking over here, that might help the online folks. Perfect. Thank you. So the project background, I think the first thing to know is that this program that we're talking about today is really about homeownership. And so what we're looking at is supplying homeownership for a variety to meet community needs and for a variety of income levels. And so Jeremiah, if you want to go to the next slide here. just show that to folks. So I know the online folks may or may not be able to see the text entirely. So I will go ahead and just kind of summarize everything that's on the slide, and maybe we can work on seeing if we can expand that in the room. But if not, I'm going to go over everything that's on there so you'll be able to hear it directly from me. So there are really three key things to know about homeownership programs and what's being sort of discussed tonight. It's about homeownership, right? So it's about, selling homes to residents of Houston and, folks who are moving in. It's about meeting community needs. And so what that means is really thinking about a variety of families, a variety of income levels, and making sure we're really meeting people where they are. And so specifically, at least 50% of the homes sold, 51%, excuse me, of the homes sold through these programs are going to be affordable at various income levels. And we'll get a little bit further into, Jeremiah will talk a little bit more specifically about what affordability means, because it can mean a variety of things, right? But we want to just make sure that you know that these are really going to be mixed income projects that offer a variety of housing opportunities to the near North Side. So if we go to the next slide, one of the other things to know is that great neighborhoods have a variety of homes. And so in addition to sort of a variety of income and sort of cost options, one of the things that the city is looking at through this program is thinking about different ways that, from single family to duplexes to things like condos and apartments, you're able to find the kind of option that works for you, whether you're a young professional or an empty nester or a young family with a number of kids in the home. You can find the type of home in that great neighborhood that works for you. And so on the next slide, you'll see what some of this means for what we're talking about tonight. So we're really thinking.
Alex, if I could just jump in real quick, we're gonna do some AV check to make the screen a little bigger for.
I'll pause for a second because it is still a little. The camera's a little fuzzy on mine. It's kind of a technical term, but what it means is looking at these kind of options that are in between single family and larger apartment buildings, right? So those might be a duplex or things like townhomes or sort of 4-unit buildings all the way up to 10-unit buildings that really look and operate at the scale of, a normal sort of residential street, right? You're talking about 2-story buildings that aren't super tall, but you're talking about some options that can offer of land, which we're going to talk about the 2 sites that the city has worked with partners to acquire or to control pretty soon. When you have those pieces of land, you want to try and be able to support a number of families on that land, because otherwise it's very expensive to not kind of maximize the use of that land. At the same time, we don't necessarily, we know that some of these areas are especially residentially scaled, so we want to make sure we're being respectful of the neighborhood that is there now, and putting options in place that are really proportional and that reflect the character of the neighborhood as it is today. So if we go to the next slide, and we've got to do that on the online one too. So there are 2 sites that we're talking about tonight specifically. And so number 1 is the Northside, which is currently used as parking and maintenance facilities for the Yellow Cab company. So you can see it up north there on the map. And the second one is the Southside, which is a currently vacant site. It is next to Burnett Transit Center on the Metro Red Line in an area that many of you probably know as Hardy Yards. So if we talk about we're going to talk about, just go through each of those sites. So the South site, this one that we were looking at that's right down in Hardy Yards, you can see an image of it on the left and a map on the right that shows the extent of that property. This is really the first site that the city is looking to put out for development. And Jeremiah is going to go over a little bit later what this process looks like of development. But right now, I think the important thing to know is that, the city currently has control of this site and is looking to go through a development process that will bring new housing to this site by partnering up with developers, right? So by actually issuing what we call a notice of funding availability, or NOFA, which is kind of a long word for kind of a solicitation and ask for partnership. And having developers submit proposals to actually develop this site in accordance with what the city wants to see, including homeownership and affordability and that mixed income idea we had, and in accordance with what all of you have said you want to see throughout the course of this process. And so those are really going to be the key things when that NOFA, that Notice of Funding Availability, is made available, that the developer is going to have to consider in order to be successful in being able to do this project. So the south side is going to be the first site that gets one of those Notice of Funding Availability issued. And then the north site, which is the, as you can see, that parking and maintenance facility for the Yellow Cab Company, will come a little bit further into the future. And so you can see, again, a picture of that site on the left and a map of that site showing kind of the aerial view of it on the right and where it sits in the neighborhood. So those are the key sites that we're considering tonight. And next, we're going to talk a little bit more about the engagement process. So the Housing Community Development Department, the city, and we have Asakura Robinson, which I work for, has assisted in conducting an engagement process with the near Northside community over the last couple of months. So this had a number of different steps to it. You can see those here on the slide. The first one was a city focus group, and what that means is we brought together a number of different city departments to talk about the key opportunities, challenges, ideas around developing these sites to make sure that we could take those into account. We then had a focus group with community leaders in the near North Side. And after that, we did a series of public engagement events. I believe there were 6 hybrid events, much like the one tonight, which had in-person and virtual options that allowed for folks to participate and share their ideas about what are the important principles and things the city should be thinking about as we're putting together this Notice of Funding Availability for developers, as we're telling those developers really what we want to see in terms of proposals for these sites, right? And so that community engagement process has informed what we're going to talk about tonight, which is our community recap session to tell you what we've heard and what the next steps are going forward. So if we go to the next slide. We got to do that online too. There we go. So we also had a number, in addition to those events that I spoke about, there were a number of other ways that folks could get engaged in the project. So we had a website. Both the Housing and Community Development Department had its own website related to this project, but there was also an interactive social pinpoint website linked from that page where people could drop pins on a map, participate in a survey, put ideas on an ideas wall where people could like and dislike and sort of interact, reply to other folks' ideas to try and make sure that we were getting as many different ideas as possible. And that website also makes it more flexible so that if you didn't have time to come to a particular meeting, you could still engage in the process. There was also signage. So signage was posted on the sites themselves so that people in the neighborhood could make sure, we made sure folks who live right around there could understand what was going on and hopefully participate. And then the city was also posting updates on social media, on their website and on social media to make sure the word was getting out. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to give you a little summary right now of what we heard. So these 6 themes that you see on the right-hand side of this slide are the top themes that emerged from the engagement process. And we came to these by taking account of every comment on the Social Pinpoint website and every comment received during the in-person and hybrid virtual meetings, and actually coding those and adding them all up to find out what were sort of the top ideas that came out of the process that people really told us over and over again that they cared about. So the first 2, these kind of, out of these 6, what I would say is that there's kind of 3 tiers. So the top tier of ideas are the top 2 ideas on this slide. The idea about mixed use, retail, and grocery, and the idea about green spaces, parks, and trees. We heard these 2 ideas the most. They basically tied as an equal number of comments that we heard. And so the mixed use idea, mixed use is kind of a funny phrase. What we're talking about there is mixed use development, right? So thinking about housing, but also what can housing do to support and maybe interact on the same site with other services like food, restaurants, retail businesses, small local businesses, childcare, and other commercial uses that are community serving that could really add to the offerings that are currently in the near North Side. The green spaces, parks, and trees idea, we heard a lot of different ideas here about, preserving or adding trees, that the trees that exist now really give character to the near North Side, increasing access to green spaces, taking advantage of views of downtown within those green spaces, so making sure downtown, and those great views in the neighborhood can be seen. So all of those came to the top as well in terms of ideas that we heard. The next tier of ideas related to a couple different, themes, good design. And so thinking about what are the design features that people really want to see these developments take on? What are some ways in which we could think about designing these new homes such that they really fit in with the neighborhood and they add to the character rather than detracting? And so there folks suggested design features such as porches, thinking about historical details and the ways that, the near North Side really has a lot of those great historical homes. What are details that could be absorbed into these homes as well that could be, added to the neighborhood? And then maybe there are some different options in terms of detached and attached home options that really kind of give that character to the development. Alternatives to cars was another one. So, I really remember somebody just saying in one of these meetings, near North Side is a neighborhood that walks. And, I think that really came through in a lot of different comments around people saying, we bike, we walk, we don't just drive around. And so thinking about providing those strong connections for bicycles, pedestrians, and to transit that are safe and convenient as part of these projects. Affordable homes and safety were our kind of third tier of comments. And so we heard some favorable comments about providing more access to affordable homes for near North Side residents. We also did hear some concerns about safety related to traffic and crime, and some ideas from people about how they'd like to ensure that families feel safe. So those are our top 6 ideas. And next, on the next slide, we're going to go through just some quotes from community members that they offered throughout this process, so you can see how these played out in what we actually heard. So if we switch the online slide here too, one of the, some of the ideas were just directly about affordable homes. And so thinking about affordable homes for families and single people, making modest affordable homes that are truly affordable. And Jeremiah, we just need to make sure the online slide has not switched yet to the new one. Nope. For some reason it is not changing.
Give me just 1 second, Alex.
Yep.
Change up here, then change
There you go.
online. It looks like.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, well, I didn't have anything.
Got it.
Okay. I'll take you for it. Hand it back to you.
Okay, thanks. All right, so these are some of the key ideas that we heard. So around affordable homes, so thinking about, affordable homes for a variety of people, families, single people, making sure that they're truly affordable. Thinking about, installing new bike lanes so that we can access the trails that already exist. This comment on this first one on good design, I thought was really illustrative. Thinking about, everything from porches or patios so people can interact with one another, a mix of housing types for families or empty nesters or single folks, parking, making sure there's adequate parking, lots of trees. So really thinking about like all those different aspects of what good design means for the near North Side. And then, we heard a variety of perspectives on sort of the type of home that was preferred. So we heard some folks saying, I really want to see, typical detached homes. We heard other folks say, hey, I want to see something more like the condos that were constructed by Avenue CDC. We really like those. So giving us some good, at least general principles to be operating on when it comes to the different types of homes that are welcome in the neighborhood and that could be a good addition. On safety, I think we did hear some comments about, lack of feeling safe in the neighborhood, thinking about, for example, folks not feeling safe in their existing green spaces and what could be done to make new green spaces feel safer. So, there are principles there we could think about, like lighting or, access or other things that, give opportunities to make sure that, new spaces really do feel safe while at the same time are accessible to the residents, of the community in general. So then on the next slide, what we've done is visualize a couple of these design ideas we heard from you, and just kind of shown, these are the ones that we're about to show you are just sort of general concepts that are, that take on some of the ideas and show how they could look in practice. So we just got to flip over to our new diagram here. Okay, moved in person, but not yet online. There we go. So some of those ideas how they might so now that this is right, this is not but that happened through this proposal process with developers. So just reminding everyone, the design has not yet been made. So these are just kind of concepts or ideas as to what a neighborhood with these features might look like. So we have things, you cared about porches, and here we're showing things like covered porches, so that you could be out there in, if it's raining or if it's a little hot and sunny, you still have an opportunity to get out and gather with your neighbors. Walkability, creating walkable paths through things like courtyards to make sure that you could walk your dog, and you can see that walking path has lighting to make sure it stays safe during both the day and the night. You cared about green spaces where people can come together, and those green spaces should have things like seating areas and places where people can gather. And you can see someone biking through this area as well. So really creating a place that's walkable but also bikeable for folks who want to bike around. So this is the kind of place that we think that we think we heard you describing, and we think we heard some of these key ideas from you. So just giving you an idea of what that might look like in practice. So then on the next slide, some more of our key community-wide ideas. So mixed use and retail, this person had a lot of different ideas about, everything from green spaces to, community serving businesses like banks and restaurants and pharmacies, grocery stores. So thinking about all these different community serving businesses that could be part of the, what this development can support. And then green spaces as well. So this, I really liked this idea, so I wanted to pull it out. Someone had an idea, hey, why don't we create a hill that has a great view of downtown as part of the new development and make that part of the green space? I think, again, do I know that that's exactly what's going to happen? I'm not sure. It could be something that, a developer thinks about. It could not. But I thought it was just such a cool idea, and it shows how creative a lot of folks were in thinking about the opportunities here and the kinds of things that we can feed to, into this notice of funding availability to make sure that, folks are at least considering it as they put together their designs for these new projects. So if we go to the next slide, we have another picture here of just some of these different ideas. So, you cared about shade and trees. You cared about a green landscape and a connected neighborhood where folks can bike around safely. We heard some comments about public art. And so, obviously a big feature of the near Northside already. How do we continue to feature that as part of these new developments? And then finally, you really cared about homes that fit family needs. Making sure there really is that good variety of homes so that everyone from a single person to sort of, elderly couple to a family with lots of young kids can find the right option for them. So if we go to the next slide here, yep. So we did pull out a couple of the different ideas about the specific two sites as well, just so that you could see where some of the differences and similarities were. So for the south site, the Hardy Yard site, we heard a lot about, opportunities for that to have, green space and retail that would interact and that would become a gathering place. We heard a lot about, the idea that that would complement the existing housing in the area and become a really good, sort of central location for people to get together. We also heard a lot on the south side about improvements to mobility and specifically connections to things like the White Oak Bayou Trail, which really needs a little bit more connectivity and could benefit the residents here if it had better connection through this project. And then for the north site, we heard a little bit more there. Just gonna switch it online. Still not changing. There we go. So we heard a little bit more there about things like, again, similar ideas around service businesses, but maybe slightly smaller scale things like coffee shops or a bank or a childcare, a dry cleaners, just things that really meet community needs and that could be able to exist near the development. Thinking about green spaces, things more like a dog park or a playground, community garden. Affordable homes, making sure that we have, sort of a variety of options. So folks here said some people were really interested in some detached residential options. And then good design, really making sure that this reflects the history of the North Side and the style of it. And so trying to bring in some of those historical elements while, making sure that that's reflective of the neighborhood since it's really in the heart of the neighborhood. So those are our big community engagement findings. And after this, I'm going to hand it over to Jeremiah to talk about next steps. But really, just wanted, you all to sort of see what we had heard so far and that we heard you, hopefully, and hopefully a lot of these comments to those who have been in these meetings sound familiar and sound like things that, you heard during those meetings. We will be taking questions and answers as we, kind of get to the end of the presentation. And so if there's anything else that you want to add based on that section, please go ahead and start putting things in the chat box. And we'll be taking note of those and being able to go over those with you when we get, or if you're in person, I think there's another way to write those down. And we'll be getting to that in just a minute after Jeremiah talks through the next steps that the city is going to take.
Thank you for that, Alex. And yes, I forgot to mention that in the very beginning. Apologies for that, everyone. For those of you that are in person, we have cards on the table with pens. If you have questions or comments, please write them down, hold them up, and one of our team members will all pick them up. We're also, of course, if you're joining us online, you can put questions in the chat at any time. We are going to address those comments, or when we address those comments at the very end, we are going to have frequently asked questions, things that we're hearing from the community. So there will be opportunity that is built into this presentation for that. So just keep that in mind moving forward. And again, thank you again, Alex, for that. And we are here to talk about the next steps, right? So we've gone through this journey together, collecting your feedback, summarizing it for you. But what does it mean? The important thing is what are we going to actually do with that information you gave us? Which again, thank you so much for volunteering your time. I'll be visible at today's step. As Alex mentioned in previous slides, our immediate focus is on the south side. We are moving forward with that in the near immediate future. That does not mean we are not going to move forward with the north side. We've collected the information, we're showing that, but we are going to talk primarily about the next step of the south side. And as we go through it, as we go through that timeline, you'll see how that is very immediate. Talk about it in the next few months. And so, cross your finger, the pointer's working. Not yet? No, not yet? Okay. While it's transitioning, for those of you who are online, everyone in person can see this, but I'm going to start reading the timeline to you. This slide is going to look very familiar if you've joined us recently in prior meetings. It's steps to home development. So there's 5 points on this timeline. We are at step 1, incorporating your back from the community. The next step will be item number 2, issuing the notice of funding availability to developers, or NOFA for short. That's a long phrase, so I'm going to use NOFA for the rest of the time together. Item number 3, actually, let me take a step back. Item number 2, we anticipate issuing that NOFA in November of 2021. As we go through these next 2 slides, I want to point out here, our dates on these slides are estimates and are subject to change. So I just want to be clear about that as well. But a lot of work has gone into this timeline, and we're hoping we're going to be able to hit all these points. So going back to the slide, November has passed. It's now January 2022, and the developer has been selected. Item number 4, the construction phase begins, and we anticipate that occurring in March of 2022. And item set 5, selling the home to residents near Northside in December of 2023. So again, all these are estimated times, and we're hoping to hit all these. And we'll talk through what's going to happen as we move forward in the future, so that way we communicate as we move forward.
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay. Got it. I'm going to speak up a little bit louder, so apologies for those of you in the room if you're already tired of hearing my voice this loud. This next slide is NOFA is released and developer selected. So what we're doing here in this slide is doing a deep dive into items 2 and 3 that we just talked about. So in step 2, like we mentioned, the notice of the NOFA will go out in November of 2021. A developer will be selected in January of 2022 if everything goes as we would like it to go. So one thing I want to mention is that for step 2, by the time the NOFA has gone out, it will have gone through multiple internal City of Houston drafts, and it will have gone through approval by one of our state partners. So there's a lot of work. I know some might be thinking that November is a little bit far away, but we are going to be very thoughtful about how we incorporate your feedback, and it does have to go through a final approval process outside of the City of Houston. So that's why there's a little bit of a gap there. And then developers will have a few months to respond to that NOFA, which will be January 2022, and the City of Houston will go through and pick a developer. And I'm just queuing up on the clicker, so that's why I'm linking in a few times. And so on this slide, I'm going to pause for a second to let it catch up online. But what we're looking at here is a slide titled Construction Through Sales. What you'll see here, you may have noticed, for those of you in person, and for those of you, again, apologies for the lag online, we've renumbered the timeline. And there's a very specific reason we've done this. The prior slide, was, as you may have picked up on, was mostly driven by the City of Houston. At this point, in the timeline, this is where the developer is taking control and they're moving forward with processes. The City of Houston's role at this point is oversight of that selected developer and what they're doing in this timeline. So we're going to go ahead and get started and walk through it. Item 1, project design. We anticipate beginning March 2022 and going through September 2022. Item 2, infrastructure development, beginning in October of 2022, lasting through May 2023. Each of those phases about 6 months. Item 3 will be home construction, beginning June 2023, going through February 2024, and then the first batch of homes again being sold December of 2023. And we're about to go into a little bit of a deeper dive into each of these items, but we want to present that timeline first. Okay, so the project design, what's going to happen is when the developers submit their NOFAs, they will have to present a high-level design of what the south side will look like. So the selected developer at this point in item 1, project design, will present something more detailed, something that's more real. They'll have to go through and do the work of actually doing a more detailed project plan and making sure they dot the I's and cross the T's. That's setting up all items 2 through 4, I'm sorry. And so that will take a little bit of time. We at the city do commit to showing you what that looks like when you get there, means what we have now. And we'll talk through a little bit of what that looks like in the future in a couple of slides, like 4 or 5 slides. Item 2 is infrastructure development. And what we mean here is that the project design is done, and now the developer is doing everything they need to do with, to take that lot of land and making sure everything is developed to actually build the homes. So when you think about where you live in the neighborhood, this is the vital infrastructure we use on a day-to-day basis we sometimes don't think about. These are your sewer lines, your electric lines, where the broadband's going to go, the actual roads, everything that needs to happen before the homes can actually be built. And so we anticipate, again, that will take about 6 months. Home construction, at that point, everything's built out. in terms of infrastructure, and then homes will likely be built in phases, and we'll again commit to updating you throughout this entire process. And then, of course, the fun part, selling homes to residents of the near north side in December of 2023, again, likely in phases. So that's why you may have seen home construction will go through February 2024. As we anticipate that ending, but when the first batch of homes will go up, that's when they'll be made available. This will be done by the developer. So the developer will actually market and sell the homes. Again, at this point, the City of Houston's performing an oversight role. And now we want to talk a little bit about what this actually means in practice. We've talked about affordability, making sure homes are affordable for residents of the near north side. And in this slide, we're going to walk through what we mean. So in previous presentations, we've talked about 51% of homes will be sold at market rate. And we've talked about 49% of homes being made affordable. And so we have two examples of what that's going to look like in this slide. Will be transition. Okay, so I want you, everyone here in person and online, to think about a 5-person household. It could be a household that you're a part of, a friend, family member that's not your family, immediate family, co-worker. It could be an intergenerational household. It could be a traditional household. Whatever this 5-person household looks like, I want you to get a picture of that in your head. And I'm going to pause for a second while you're putting that picture in your mind. And also give myself a chance to breathe. Okay. That was, I think, a pretty good pause. So the way that the program that we will help bridge this affordability gap works like this. So you have that 5-person household that's looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the near north side, now that it's December 2023. Their total household gross income is $55,000. Okay, so that's however that makeup of that household, the 5 people combined are bringing in $55,000. We have a formula that has been approved by the City Council of Houston that will help us walk through these next 2 steps. So the numbers are not arbitrary. This has already been approved by the City Council, and will show how affordability works here. A house, we project that this household will be able to secure a mortgage of $178,042. Through this down payment assistance program to bridge the affordability gap, this family will receive $51,628 towards the purchase of a new home in the near north side. When we project a 4% interest rate on that mortgage, this family will be paying pre-tax $850 on this new home. Now what this means is for this family of 5 that is moving into this 3-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms, they will be able to build equity for their home. They will be able to pay what is likely way less than what they're paying on rent. And most importantly, they will be neighbors in the near north side. And we're going to go through a second example just to show you some numbers, to show you the variability of this formula. We're going to use, you can picture a 55-person household with just the example a little bit similar. A 5-person household is looking to buy a home in the near north side under this program. Their total income is $65,000. Because of that, they were able to secure a mortgage that's $208,000. You'll notice that's about $30,000 more than what the previous 5-person household was able to secure. And because of that, they will receive a little bit less in down payment assistance, that $30,000 mark. They will be getting about $21,431. Again, the idea is to bridge that affordability gap from the near north side in that 51% of households. And projected interest rate of 4%. Their monthly payments pre-tax, we estimate will come out right under $1,000, $994. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of this, but this is just a high-level overview. Again, this formula has been approved. This is the formula we're going to use. We're going to talk a little bit about income qualifications a little bit ahead in about 2 or 3 slides. But I know those are a lot of numbers, so I'm going to give a little bit second to pause. But this is how it will help bridge that affordability gap for the 15% apartments in the north side on the south side. Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about community's next steps. So we've already a few times talked about our commitment to letting the community know what we know as soon as we know it. So this is a recap session, but it's not the end of our conversation near Northside. So we are repurposing the landing page, the new homes for the near Northside page that you may have already joined. We've seen a few times. You need to connect the battery. We've got a low battery, so we're just going to connect that real quick. But that's what that noise was. But to get back to it, that same landing page that we've used to let you guys know about meetings, we're going to repurpose that, and there's going to be continuous updates as we go through this process together. So, for example, when the NOFA is released out onto the streets, we will post a link to that there. We will produce summary documents that make it more digestible for people to understand. So that way, you don't have to read through the entire what's likely to be 40-page document, right? We'll post things like when a developer has been selected, we'll let you know who that is. When they present their winning. Okay. So things like that. We're going to update you throughout the entire process. If you recall, I mentioned that when an updated project design is sent to the city, that is something we will not only put on the website, but we'll make clear when we have a meeting to show that in more detail. So this will be essentially your go-to page to find the most current information on the north and south side development. And we have the link there for all of you. Again, this is the same exact link that we've been using in the past. So the other thing we wanted to mention, we do have other City of Houston down payment assistance programs. So if you're looking to start your journey to home ownership a little bit earlier than December 2023, at the front desk, for those of you in person, we have flyers to 2 different down payment assistance programs here at the city. For those of you online, we're going to put the links to those websites as well. So that way you have access to that. And these are down payment assistance programs that can help you towards the home in the north side or anywhere in the city of Houston. So these are some of the next steps that we have. Again, we are making that commitment to make sure that everyone in the north side is engaged in this process, and that we can help you in the best way we can on that journey to home ownership. So we're going to go through some FAQs, and then we're going to answer your questions. So thank you for all of y'all's patience as we were plugging in the laptop. So we have a few slides on FAQs. You can ask questions. Again, this is a combination of questions we were hearing in the previous 6 engagements we had with you guys, and also questions we're getting online via email. So the first question, what exactly do you mean by affordable homes? What does that mean? So generally, rent for mortgage payment should not be more than 30% of gross income. Document assistance will make available to help bridge the gap between the mortgage and the income of 51% of the homes on the south side. Another question, and this might be the question we got the most, was will there be any difference between the market rate and affordable homes? So we want to be as clear as possible on this. Homes developed at the south side will all have the same construction quality. Floor plans may differ based on the size of the lot and the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, but otherwise the only difference will be we will be helping with down payment assistance on 51% of those homes. Otherwise, construction quality will be the same. So what is the qualifying income for down payment assistance? This is a little bit of a technical answer, and it'll take 2 slides. So assistance for the purchase of a home is prohibited when the combined household income is greater than 80% area median income, or AMI, The next slide will show you what that looks like for your reference. The AMI is calculated and by the Housing and Urban Development Departments for HUD. So this is a federal figure that is calculated by the federal government. Please note that the numbers we're about to look at are not loan program eligibility, but this is the income cap. And we're going to look at that right now. So these are the 2021 numbers. I'm not going to read all of these to you because that's a lot, but it's based per household. And again, these numbers will be updated daily. Typically, HUD updates them in the March or April timeframe. So these are the current numbers. So that 5% household, that example we went through, right here, $68,450 would be what their cap would be to be income eligible for this program. So that second example, they're at 65,000, they would have been eligible for that. Okay. How will I know when homes are available to purchase at the South Side? So again, the selected developer will market when the homes are available, but we do again commit to putting this information on that landing page, and then we will announce it also more than likely on social media as well. So again, this is not the end of the engagement. This is just the new phase as we move forward. Where can I read the program guidelines? So the program guidelines document everything, all the rules that are in place, that are passed by City Council. If you would like to read those guidelines, you can go to that link right there, recovery.houston.gov/HSFD3. And so it's right in the middle, it's literally in the middle of the page. It says program guidelines, so it's available for anyone to read right now. And this is a question we've been getting a lot lately, actually. When will the application process to purchase homes begin? So I know it sounds like a broken record, but again, the selected developer will market when these homes are available to purchase. Again, we do commit to letting you know on our website and our media. When the sale date is closer, we're going to update that webpage, the Northside, and the program website, the one we just talked about, the HFSD. With details on the down payment assistance application process for those 51% of those homes. For the 49% of that home, you get market rate homes, that will be, I guess I don't want to say normal, but we'll go directly to the developer. And the 51%, there's that extra step to ensure we hit the program guidelines. But in terms of purchasing the homes, when we get a little bit closer, we will update everyone on that. And that is the end of the presentation. So again, really appreciate all of you taking the time here to join us again for the recap session. And we will continuously update you when we can on any progression as we move forward on the NOFA, everything that we can on the new homes for the near north side landing page. It's the page we've already been using. But other than that, I think we're at the end. So thank you again for joining us, and we will be speaking throughout this entire process, having a conversation through this entire process with the community. Thank you, everyone.